thank you so much for joining us today. As we've talked about, we have this series that we're doing titled Your Honor, in which we want to talk to wise people who have really seen the history of our profession and what's happened to it, and get your thoughts and just observations. So thank you so much for joining us, Bob.
Well, from what you stated about the requirements, I guess I qualify. I'm old.
and very wise, very wise. Bob, I want to start this way. Why did you choose to become a lawyer in the first place? What was your decision making of what drew you to wanting to be a lawyer?
Well, my father was a lawyer and loved being a lawyer, and he told us about the law. I went to court with him and did other things, and it was, I think, about my senior year in high school when I had a feeling I was being pushed into being a lawyer, and I don't like being pushed. And I told my dad that I wanted to become an engineer because I was strong in math. And to my shock, he said, "That's great, Bob. That's a wonderful occupation, and you should do very well in that. I think it'd be great." And I was so surprised that night. I lied in bed thinking, and all of a sudden I realized that I don't have to resist being pushed. I would like to be a lawyer. And it took away all of the stigma of just following orders. And from there on in, I had been in high school on the student court and the pre-law thing in college. And there was never a question in my mind. My advisor in college, who was the chairman of the math department, wanted me to get involved in math stuff. And I just told him I couldn't do it, that this is what I wanted. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And it wasn't a close call.
Where did you go to undergraduate and law school?
Well, the first part that you didn't ask is where I went to high school.
Where'd you go to high school, Bob?
Okay, funny you should ask. I went to a very tough high school in Brooklyn, New York. And most of the people didn't go to college. And it has since closed for having the lowest graduation rate and the highest crime rate of any school in New York. And I went to Dartmouth College and Yale Law School. And being a trial lawyer, I learned to speak to jurors at Lafayette High School because the people there were like jurors. I had very good friends who had 100 IQs and 90 IQs. And I didn't just tolerate them, I liked them. They were my friends, and I don't have a big vocabulary. I don't use a lot of the fancy words that some of the people from prestigious schools use. So Lafayette taught me to speak plain English, and it was a great part of my 3 parts of education. I love Dartmouth College. I have a strong attraction to it. I've been a very active alumni, and also Yale Law School I've been active with. I've had the best of all 3. If I had anything to do over again, I wouldn't change that education for me. Not that it'd be best for anyone else, but it was perfect for me. I was very young. I thought I knew a lot, and I learned about how much I didn't know, still learning. And my education was excellent to the extent I took advantage of it.
In those early years, were there any particular mentors that you had that shaped the early years of your career?
Oh, very, very much so. I to the extent I have any success, I attribute it to 2 things. One is luck, which I'll go into later on, And the second was mentors. My dad was a very large mentor, as was my sister, who was a lawyer, and my mother in general. So those three are in a whole different category than anyone else. When I got down here, some people were very, very kind to me. Bill Colson went to his friend, Judge William A. Meadows, and asked Meadows to invite me to be an assistant U.S. attorney. Nowadays, you need to have 2 years of trial experience. There's 300 people in the office. Back then, it was an office of 11 people. And Bill Meadows invited me to join. And he was, next to my dad, the largest mentor. He mentored me as a lawyer, as a father, and as a husband. He was the lay leader of the Methodist Church, and he was the most decent human being I ever met. And he just wanted all of his assistant U.S. attorneys to do the right thing. He's had a major influence on my life. Once a year, I have a luncheon for all the people who work for him, honoring him. And he was the largest and the first mentor I had. After that, my office in the federal building was next to Judge David Dyer. And there were only 3 judges. So I appeared before him a lot. And he had a major influence, as did Judge Fulton, who was the chief judge back then. And then I, for some reasons, ran into Judge Joe Eaton and Judge Jim Kehoe. And they were wonderful. They really took care of me. I remember once when one of the federal judges gave me a very rough time in court, and afterwards asked the secretary to call me into his chambers. And I thought he was just going to yell at me some more. When I got in there, he said, I really disturbed you today, didn't I? And I said, yes, Your Honor, you did. He said, well, let me explain why. We judges have decided that you might someday be a good lawyer, but it's going to take a lot of work on our part. And today was just one example where I felt you had to learn a lesson. And they really went about teaching me. And they were with me all the way and helped me with my career, and I owe an awful lot to them and many others. But I've really drawn the best mentors you could have.
So that takes me to this question, Bob, of the importance of relationships in just our daily life, but also in the practice of law and developing our careers. Can you talk a little bit about what your take is on the importance of relationships having with our fellow men and women?
They're paramount. When you're nice to people and they're nice to you, one, it makes you smile every day while you're walking into the office, and you get a lot more done with people who are kind. And I'm a person. I'm not a big researcher, law student, writer, etc. But I deal with people. And the people who I've dealt with have been a major part of my career and my happiness, because they just made life wonderful for me.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about the importance of luck, and I don't want that to slide by. I want to address it now, if you don't mind. Can you share with us what you mean by that, and how does luck play into a career?
I think it's important to be at the right place at the right time, and when something happens, to take advantage of it. I'll give you some examples. I had 2 cases which really had great effect on my career. One of them was representing a developer, the developer of Century Village, H. Irwin Levy. And the truth is that he had hired someone else. He had hired Bill Frates. And Bill Frates got tied up representing Ehrlichman in the Nixon cases. And he was in Washington and very, very busy with that nationally important case. And Mr. Levy did not like the fact that he wasn't getting sufficient attention. And he had a conference with Bill Frates, and Bill apologized but said, I must be there in Washington. And Frates said, well, what should I do? And for some reason that I don't know, Bill Frates told him to call me. And I ended up representing this very important businessman. And a lot of people said, wow, he must be a decent lawyer if someone like that hires him. I thought he was just another kid down the block. He must be okay. And it gave me some legitimacy. The second one was, 10 years later, when Jim Morrison was arrested for his behavior at the Dinnicky Auditorium. And again, someone else was hired, the California lawyer, and Jim Morrison hired a local lawyer, and the local lawyer didn't return 3 or 4 calls that they made to him. And they fired him and hired me. Well, how lucky can you get that 2 wonderful, competent lawyers ended up not handling the cases? They came to me, and it made it appear to others that I must be a good lawyer. Now, I admit I work hard. I've got a great education. I'm pretty smart. But I know people who are just as smart, work just as hard, have just as much education, who are a rung or 2 behind me in the ladder. And the reason I'm a couple of rungs ahead of them is luck. I was at the right place at the right time. I mean, you got to be willing to stand up at bat and swing. That's the only way you can get a hit. You can also strike out, but you got to be willing to stand up there and try. And every time I've had an opportunity, I've taken advantage of it. And I've done well. And it's what catapulted my career at a young age. I was a kid back then.
When you say that, Bob, about being at the right place at the right time, I agree with you completely. But what you're also putting in there, I think without saying it directly, is, but you also have to be the right person. You have to be aware and astute enough to know that this is the moment. And obviously, you have that capacity.
I don't think it's a unique trait. I think most people have that capacity, and if they are put in a position where they can look good, they jump at it and they look good. So I'd say 90% of the lawyers, when placed in a position like that, know how to use it. The problem is that only 3 to 5% of them get the opportunities I did and the luck I had.
Interesting. Well said, Bob. I want to transition here to get into certain philosophical discussions with you on where we are in society and where we are in the practice of law, if you don't mind. Let me first start this way. You're known for doing a lot of pro bono work and being there for family and friends in need. I mean, you're the first one to call, you're the first one to show up, you're the first one to volunteer. What does that mean to you? I guess it's why? What does that mean to you, Bob?
Well, I'm very interested in enjoying myself and being happy. And when I do those things, it's no sacrifice. I really enjoy it. And considering all of the breaks I've had, the mentoring I've had, I think it is my obligation to pass it on. So I meet every week or two with a young lawyer who's got some career issues or questions, and I am doing for them what my mentors did for me. And in terms of the pro bono work, starting off with Bill Meadows and the other lawyers I've worked with, and my family, where I learned about taking good care of people. I enjoy doing pro bono work. I try not to let it interfere too much with paying work, but I think it's critical to society, to the legal profession, and it is to me. I'll give you an example of one of the cases that I consider my greatest cases. I was representing a young man who was accused of DWB. Do you know what that is, Paul?
I think so, but please tell us.
It's driving while black. Okay. It's a young black man driving in the wrong neighborhood. And some policemen feel compelled to stop him because his rear right light wasn't on, or he didn't stop at a stop sign. And it's pure discrimination. And I represent, aside from my friends' kids and my kids' friends, I represent many of my friends' gardeners or maids' kids. And I had one of a DWB, of a fine young man who was a high school senior. And I handled the case, and it really wasn't very difficult because it was obvious that the police officer had no case. And when it finished, he said to me, I appreciate what you did so much. I don't know if I can ever thank you enough. I said, well, I appreciate doing it. I was glad to help you. He said, well, I don't think you know just how much you helped me. You just saved my college scholarship. Well, that's one of the greatest victories I ever had. And so on a very selfish basis, wanting to feel good, I love doing things like that, because that victory and that young man saying that to me, something that happened about 50 years ago. And I remember that a lot more than some cases that were big money or big headlines or something, because I was really able to help someone. You know, when you're really able to help someone, it feels so good. And that's what some people don't get with pro bono work. You really feel satisfied afterwards. And it's, I do it for, I'd almost say, selfish reasons. I do it so I can feel good. It's the same reason I eat a lot of dark chocolate, because I like it.
Right.
You know, it may not be good for me, but I like that. And I like handling a case where I can help someone. And part of it is in the background. I said, I've gotten a lot of help, and I think I should be helping other people.
That's great. Bob, let me transition now to issues of the judiciary, professionalism, civility, those issues. And I want to really get your insight and thoughts on this. It's really important to us. You've been a trial lawyer for a long time, and you've tried cases in pretty much every court there can be, state, federal, at every level. When you walk into the state courtrooms, in Miami at least, they have that sign behind the judge's bench that says something like, "We who labor here seek only truth." In federal, they have, the seal, the United States seal, etc. But let me ask you about the state court. What does that mean to you when you see that, and it says, "We who labor here seek only truth"? What do you expect the judge and the lawyers to be doing in that courtroom under that type of banner, so to speak?
Well, they should be seeking truth. That's their assignment, much more so for the judges than the lawyers. The lawyers are advocates, and they're seeking justice for their clients. The judge is just seeking the truth. And most of them, 95, 98% of them, are doing that. There are some problems with our system. I don't like the election system, and I'm concerned with the appointment system because it all depends upon who's doing the appointing. I was on some of those panels and served on the ABA Standing Committee on the Judiciary, where we did the background on everyone being nominated for the district court up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And if you have the right people making the right selections, it's a wonderful thing. But it used to be that Governor Collins, Governor Graham, Governor Askew, Lawton Childs selected people regardless of their party affiliation, regardless of their color, their religion. They just picked the best people. And to the extent that Askew started off with these panels, the panels were selected by the bar, and they had a cross-section. Nowadays, the panels, to the best of my understanding, are selected by elected officials. And there's always politics involved in that. And I am sure that everyone who ascends to the bench seeks the truth. But their backgrounds mean a lot. And too many of them have the same backgrounds. And it's not that they're different than mine, but I think we really need some diversity, not just in sex, color, and nationality, but we need diversity in practice. We need people coming from different places with different attitudes. And I don't think we're getting enough of that nowadays. I've just been thrilled with the appointment to the Supreme Court with a young lady who went to the high school that all of my kids went to. There are some wonderful appointments, and governors make wonderful appointments, and senators make wonderful appointments. But the election process, it just doesn't work right. It first fell apart when a magnificent judge in the 60s, one of the best, lost an election by someone else who went to shopping centers, was bilingual, and all the rest of that stuff. I don't want to downplay the responsibility of the citizens, but I'm not sure the citizens are really qualified to know who would be a good judge. It's a more popularity contest than who has bigger posters and endorsements. So I'd prefer some appointment system, but I'd like it to really be without politics. And under the current system, the judges, in order to run for office, need to campaign, and they need money. And by them going to the bar, the people who know them, it creates an inherent problem. And I would like to see a system whereby you can support qualified judges anonymously. That it all goes into a blind trust. And you show up at a hearing, the judge doesn't know whether you or your opponent gave him anything. And the judge rules on the facts. If the judge does know that one side has been very active in his campaign, I'm sure the judge will try to overcome that. He might even lean over backwards the other way. But it's tough enough to be a judge without wondering whether you're leaning one way or another due to inappropriate factors. So I just assume judges don't know who's supporting them, who's financing them, if there's going to be public elections. And I like more of a Missouri system of appointments, and so that's where I stand with the judiciary. Overall, they're wonderful. I think they could be better. I think lawyers could be better. I think I could be better. I think you could be better, Paul. There's room for improvement with everyone. And we can improve in our judiciary, even though, while there are problems with the system, it is the best system in the world. Our whole justice system is wonderful.
And I appreciate that answer completely. But I'm wondering if we can ever go back to a different way of doing it. I mean, it seems like it's ingrained now, the election of state court judges and the impact that has, in the world we live in now with 24/7 everything and social media and everyone having an opinion about everyone on every platform. It seems that the system is being strained, Bob, and the judges are being strained, and the lawyers themselves are being strained by just the social media crisis. Do you see any way of coming back from that, or making some movement in a different direction?
It has to start with the people. The people have to elect the public officials who will modify the system, who will do everything on the merits. I don't have specific answers. I mean, there are some problems like what's going to happen in Ukraine, what's going to happen with the judiciary that are just above my grade level. But I do have hope that we can keep improving on the judicial selection.
Let me ask you then, when you've been in front of a judge that is not acting, in your view, in the best interest of seeking truth and justice, is there any procedure or protocol that you follow to bring that to the court's attention, or try to right the ship in that process?
Well, the first thing is to be respectful, not be ugly and inappropriate when dealing with an authority figure, whether it's a policeman who stopped you or a judge who's making bad rulings. You just have to stick with it, make a good record. And just the other day, a friend of mine was telling me about a case he tried, and the judge, facially and body-wise, was showing some prejudice toward one side. And at a recess, the lawyer mentioned that to the judge. He said, "Your Honor, I just see from your facial expressions when some things have been happening here, you've indicated a preference for the other side." And I think I don't know if you're doing it consciously, but it doesn't matter. The jury sees it, and I just wanted to call it to your attention. Well, a rotten judge could have held him in contempt, could have just really given him a rough time. Instead, when the judge brought the jury back, the judge said, "It's been brought to my attention that I may be, with my body language or my facial expressions, indicating to you that I believe one side more than the other. And I want you to know that's not true. Both sides are totally equal, and I want you to decide who's right and who's wrong." That was a very classy judge who maybe was favoring one side. We're human beings. You know, when you hear two sides to an argument, when your kids are arguing and you're trying to be fair about it, and you just know one of them is lying, yeah, you start favoring the other side. And judges are human. And by the way, just going to another issue, I couldn't be a good judge. I've had some opportunities that I won't go into, but I'm afraid I would take sides. I'm an advocate, and even when I've done arbitrations and stuff, I find that I don't remain neutral during the entire time. once I've heard enough, I know where I stand. And I make up my mind too quickly. And that's not fair. Some judges, the great judges, really do stay neutral. And I would not enjoy doing that. Also, if I saw a wonderful lawyer on one side and a terrible lawyer on the other, I try to help the terrible lawyer's client. I'd feel badly for him. It's not fair. So, in answer to improvements in the judiciary, one thing that would not be an improvement is my being there. It takes people who are much more qualified in neutrality. I like to take sides. But I think in utopia, as we get better, the system gets better, the judiciary's behavior will get better, and the lawyer's behavior will get better. We'll all get better. The nations will do better.
I want to get into the lawyer's behavior now. When you are confronted with bad lawyering, uncivil or unprofessional or unethical conduct by lawyers, what is your protocol? How do you address it? How do you deal with it? How do you try to maneuver through that?
That's one of my specialties. I've lectured on it and I've written on it. And my way of handling it has changed. When I was younger, I kind of fought back. Sometimes I would be just as nasty as they were. I've learned that doesn't work. And I've learned to prevent that stuff to begin with. When there's a new advocate on the other side, I very often call them up and ask to have lunch or coffee. When you know someone, it's very difficult to be rude to them. And if lawyers would get to know each other, they'd be much nicer. And Judge Fay, Pete Fay, who was a district court judge and on the 11th Circuit, when he would have a discovery dispute, which judges hate, and they just hate lawyers arguing about these minutiae, he would start off saying, I'm not going to rule on this today, but here's what we're going to do. The two of you, sometime within the next month, are going to go out to lunch together. You're not going to discuss this case. Discuss your lives, your kids, what church you go to. Are your kids in the same school? Play in the same baseball league? Just have lunch together. And if after that you can't solve your discovery disputes, come back here and I'll rule. And Judge Tay has told me no one ever had to come back. When I find out that my opponent's uncle is someone who I love dearly, and I would hate my opponent to tell his uncle that I'm a jerk. So I make sure that this guy, while we're fighting hard in the case, that he's going to report to his uncle that I'm a nice guy, and vice versa. And your kids are in the same class together, et cetera, et cetera. And that, to me, people, when four guys go and play golf or tennis every Saturday or Sunday, they don't look at the two guys they're playing against as the enemy, because every week you rotate. But why is it when we go into court, the one or two guys on the other side, they're the enemy? You just walk in looking for trouble, and they're looking for trouble, and you get trouble. It's happened in my career that some of my best friends were my opponents. My partner, Aaron Potthurst, I met in 1963 as opposing counsel. My close friend, Dick Massington, was my opponent. I have a lot of people who I've tried cases against that we've become very good friends. And I'll tell you another selfish, opportunistic issue, about 1/3 of my cases come in from opposing counsel or opposing parties. They've called me up and hired me. And it wasn't because I was such a great lawyer. I was a good lawyer, but I was a nice guy. And they liked me. And being liked, not at the expense of your client. I mean, you're going to advocate vigorously, but you don't have to step on people. I mean, every case that I've won, I walk over and shake hands with my opponent, and I tell him, you did a great job. I had the facts and the law, and maybe next time we meet, you'll have the facts and the law, and it'll be reversed. But you did a great job, and it was a pleasure working with you. That's the way I leave it after. I don't taunt them or tell them how I kick their asses. I don't say it to them, and I don't say it behind their back. So being nice to people, I think that's what your question was about, is very good.
So, Bob, I think what we were talking about was you dealing with opposing counsel and lawyers and meeting with them and trying to get to know them to bridge any issues that may be occurring. Are there any other thoughts you have on that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I just think instead of engaging when someone is being unkind, I just think it's much better to kill them with kindness. I've been at depositions where a fight breaks out about where people are sitting. And it makes me think about the Paris peace talks. While young men were dying during the war, it took 2 years for the politicians to figure out the seating arrangement for the Paris peace talks. Well, I don't care where I sit in a deposition. There are so many things I don't care about because they're not worth caring about. And we seem to quarrel over those things. So when someone is a control freak and they want this or that, I find it's worthwhile to give them almost everything they want that's not detrimental to my case. It reminds me of something that you can say during an argument where someone just won't give in. They're just maintaining their position, and you can look at them and say, "Look, let's move on. For purposes of us moving forward, I'd like to agree with you, except then we'd both be wrong." And if they don't smile and laugh at that, then you got a problem. But just keep trying, and usually, it's just one-on-one. And it's really, I'm not going to attribute it to my maturing and being better. But there are some advantages to being old. People don't mess with me. They really don't pull any of this silly stuff. They don't send me things late or put the wrong date on it or other things. They just say, let's not fight with the old man. Just let him file it that way, this way. Let him sit there and do this or that. And they're not looking for a fight, and I don't give them a fight. And on the other side of it, I'm just very nice to them. Also, there's a federal judge in Denver who had the most fascinating way of getting lawyers back to behaving. As they were arguing with a jury in there too, he would take a yellow thing, the thing that the referees use in football, that they throw the yellow flag.
Right.
He would, from the bench, he'd throw the yellow flag between them. and he'd say, 20 yards for bad behavior, come into chambers. And the lawyers would be shocked. And he'd get them in the chambers and say, what are you guys doing? What are you fighting about? And it had such a shock effect that everyone all of a sudden came back to realize, very often when you lose your temper, you don't realize it. I've read some transcripts way back, and I remember my partner looking at a transcript of a case I had tried, and he pointed out my saying things and doing things that I shouldn't have said or done. And every time he pointed them out to me, I showed him the 3 pages before that in the transcript, what pushed me into doing that, why it was justified. And he looked at me and said, that's no justification. You have no right to react poorly to someone else's bad behavior. You're above that, Bob. And as I looked at the transcript, I was embarrassed by some of my behavior. And you just can't let the other person bring you down to their level. Raise them to yours.
You don't let your opponent define you. You define yourself.
Correct.
Right. Absolutely right. We've all gone through dark times in our life when things just have gone south or they haven't gone the way we had hoped they would go. Do you have any core beliefs that have helped you through those moments in your life?
No, I suffer. If we're dealing with professional matters, when I lose a case that I think I should have won, and I always think I should have won, I always believe in my case, and I lose sleep. And it's a very interesting matter. I'm not a sore loser, but when I lose a case, I think of everything I did wrong, how I might have changed things. And when I win a case, I usually don't learn anything because I think everything I did was genius. When I lose, I have to look, and on a case that I think I should have won, I have to look back at every little thing I did that was wrong. And part of the suffering when I lose is something that I'm not sure I want to control it. Because when I'm walking in there, starting the case, I know if I lose, I will be miserable for at least a month. And I don't want to be miserable for a month. Now, I have a lot of other reasons for wanting to win. But the idea of my being upset for a month is very upsetting. So I have all sorts of motivation to do my best because I don't want to spend the next month questioning every stupid thing I did. So it's an interesting, vicious cycle that I do not take losses easily.
Interesting. What is your opinion? In the earlier years, Bob, there was no advertising for lawyers, and then advertising came in, and now you have quite dramatic advertising for lawyers. What's your take on that?
I hate it. I hate the advertising. I don't think it's good for the profession. I remember when it started, I went to my partner and said, I'd like to put an ad in the Miami Herald. And I showed it to him. I had it blocked out and it said, Pearson and Josefsberg, specializing in representing lawyers accused of false advertising. And he found out the price of a half page in the Herald. And he said, Bob, it's not that funny. I think advertising is wrong. You shouldn't be getting your clients from an ad on the bus. It shouldn't be from billboards. It should be the old-fashioned way by people calling friends and asking who's a good lawyer. I know that some very good lawyers owe a lot of their success to a lot of advertising. But I think advertising is also hooked in with volume practice. And I don't like the idea of volume practice. So I'm just totally against it. Every time when I was on the Board of Governors, I voted against it. Our firm has someone who does our public relations. I don't speak to the guy though. If a newspaper, someone wants to follow a case I'm doing, they can do that. But I don't call them with press releases. I'm old-fashioned. And by the way, I understand that the newer, younger lawyers have some ideas that are much better than my outdated concepts. But one of them that I'm stuck with is advertising. I don't believe in paying to get my name out there. If I don't earn my name out there, it shouldn't be out there. And I don't need my name out there. It wouldn't help. I'd be embarrassed if I saw a billboard saying call Bob, you know. I'd wonder, because most of my friends are old-fashioned too. They would say, God, how could you do that? So I'm not a fair commenter on that. I'm very prejudiced.
I have two real, two kind of final questions, Bob, I'd like to ask you to discuss with us as we wrap this up, and we've been going for about an hour now. Do you have faith in the system?
Yes, I do.
What gives you that faith, Bob?
It's because I don't know of a better system. And considering it is the best that there is, you have to have a system. Otherwise, there's chaos. In a course we once ran teaching kids about the law, we sent them out during gym and given them a couple of balls and said, spend 45 minutes. And they come in, no one's happy, because a few people monopolize the ball or the game or whatever. And the next day you bring them out, you divide up into teams, you make the, you design the field on which they'll play, and you tell them the rules. And everyone gets to play. And they enjoy it much more. Because it's not a couple of people dominating the game. And when I've set up basketball leagues, I've required that there be 8 people on a team in the league. And I've divided them with the young groups into each team plays 8 periods. And every player plays 5 of them. Yeah, the superstar plays 5 of them. And the kid who just can't walk or dribble, he plays 5 of them too. And you all get to play with the same rules, same game. And I think our system is far superior to any other system. And I have faith that we will keep improving it as we learn how to improve it and as we're willing to improve it. So I firmly believe in our system. And I'm in an organization that's pushing jury trials around the world. Joe Matthews goes lecturing in all different countries, teaching them how to do jury trials. And we sponsor those. So I think it's good stuff.
Great.
Could be better.
You know that you are one of my heroes, and I just think the world of you. and I'm grateful that you are in my life. I have a final question for you that I hope you can spend some time on chatting with us. And I think you've answered part of it during this hour. What's your secret, Bob?
That's a secret, Paul. I can't tell everyone. My secret is that I've gone to many touchy-feely seminars, and there are two quotes I'd like to give you. One of them is, "You're not here to learn the answers. You're here to question your answers." And the other big one that I think about every day is the definition of happiness. Because I'm a happy guy and I like being happy. Happiness is not getting what you want. It's being content and satisfied with what you have and appreciating it. There are so many people out there who just want a bigger or better car, a bigger or better house, their kid to go to a more prestigious school. And it's both competitive and it's really atrocious. There are some countries that don't have all the materialism we have. Many people in China live in an 8x10 room and get a bowl of rice, and they're very content. They don't go stealing your watch. People have to learn to be content with what they have. If it's not sufficient for life, yes, you may try to do better, but not at other people's expense and not at the expense of your happiness. Just, when we had a flood in our home, in our condo, 4 years ago, and the construction was going along very slowly, I arranged with the contractor that as soon as our bedroom, the bathroom, and the kitchen were finished, we could move back in while they were working on the rest of it. And I found out after we moved in, all I needed was a bedroom, a bathroom, and a kitchen. The 2 guest rooms, the dining room. I don't need those. But I have to have those, Cole, because you have those. And other people have even bigger family rooms. And it just made me realize how materialistic we've gotten. And, I like good things in life. I particularly like them for my family. But I'm not getting carried away with that or with money. And money is one of the biggest problems in the practice of law. It's a profession. It's not just an occupation. It's an art. And I'm very happy hearing that I saved someone's college scholarship, that I made things better for a family, than making a fortune. I'm not against making money, but I just don't think it should be the goal. The first goal is to help people. And if you do that, I think between the karma and other stuff, you end up doing okay. And if it's just a bowl of rice, that tastes fine too.
I think that if the judges and the lawyers follow that advice of what you just said, I think the system would just hum much smoother and people would be more content.
Well, it's not just the judges and the lawyers, it's the people. It's the premier of Russia. It's everyone. Everyone wants more and better, and certainly better than the Joneses. And we have to stop that.
I agree. Bob, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend with us. It's truly my honor to spend this time with you, and I thank you so much.
Paul, just to go back to some of my original thoughts, I thank you. This has been a wonderful time. I've really enjoyed it. This is my pleasure. And what we have to learn in life is symbiotic relationships, where people do things and they both end up saying, wow, that was good. And this was good for me, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Absolutely.
When we're both lecturing.
Absolutely.
Take care. Bye-bye.